This meeting was, and I'll get to that in a moment, was started in 2013. Every aspect, everything about this meeting is created by the community, even to the location. We vote annually where we will go. Every session, every presentation, every topic was chosen by patients and caregivers in the sickle cell community. It was all organized by patients and caregivers in the sickle cell community, all the fundraising, every aspect. We are parents. On our board today and on our host committee, our patients and parents make up 100% of those that put this together. Our parents are our champions. You all are the ones that fight for us and advocate for us. Even at my age, right now, if I were to go into sickle crisis, my first call after I call on God would be my mother. We transition as a unit. We become adults in this community as a unit. We are warriors. The symposium is designed, organized, and executed by the patients' families of the sickle cell community. And I will be very transparent when I tell you all that most of us organized this meeting from our hospital beds. So every part of this was created by this community for this community. How did this start? The first Warrior Gathering was held in 2013 by Sickle Cell Warriors, Inc. It actually started as an idea. Tosin Ola, president of Sickle Cell Warriors, and I were actually in Indiana to visit the Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative. She and I had been running Sickle Cell Warriors together for a couple of years. That was the first time we ever actually met in person. And it started as an idea. What if all the patients and our families just got together? There wasn't a thing like that had existed yet, where we got together to talk solely about the things that matter to patients and caregivers. And so in 2013, 12 families, it was a very small group, got together. We went on a cruise, and we talked about everything from relationships with sickle cell to new medications on the market. There were 12 of us. The next year in 2013, we came to Atlanta. There were about 65. Last year we were in LA, and this year we are back in Atlanta. This started as an idea. A group of sickle cell patients saying, let's get together, encourage each other, and let's learn. And it grew from there. Why do we do this? We do this because it is built into our DNA. It is within us to seek out each other. Warriors to find each other, to empower each other, to encourage each other, to learn how we can become a stronger community. We do this because we are strong. We do it because we are resilient. We do this because we are overcomers. The warriors of a victorious people. We join together to teach each other, to learn from each other, to encourage and empower, to uplift one another. This meeting is a bit different than other conferences that you will attend. Many of the people that will be on the stage are warriors. We will teach each other from what we've learned. We will encourage each other. We encourage you to be very, very open and to share your journey. We are excited to have a track here dedicated specifically to children and caregivers. Sitting in the back is the amazing Lisa Rose of Hope for SCD. Lisa, waving her hand right there, and her daughter, and her family, they are living with sickle cell disease. And she has put together an amazing book and a track. We're very grateful for Pfizer Pharmaceutical for sponsoring that track so that we can, this year, encourage our children and our caregivers specifically. We are absolutely thrilled and delighted to invite Dr. Gail Roberts, because mental health was decided and determined by our community as a priority. have to address our mental health the same way we are addressing our physical. It affects us powerfully, and it's time that we talk about it. Sickle Cell Warriors will be very open and talk about their mental health journey, and we will really get into this. So you'll notice mental health is on the agenda more than anything else, and it's on there for multiple time periods. We've got mental health on 2 different days. We have presentations and panels, because this community, we decided that we will reject the idea of learned helplessness. Now, I talk about this sometimes. Helplessness can be learned. And for many, many years, many of us in this community, when you are living with a chronic illness, you're used to hearing you can't, you won't, you shouldn't. And that can encourage you to embrace helplessness. Helplessness can be learned. We as a community have decided to reject that. Helplessness can be unlearned. And we will no longer walk in helplessness. We insist upon having a voice in the crowd, but more than that, we insist upon a seat at the table. That is why this meeting exists. It is hosted by Hope for SCD, supporters of families with sickle cell disease. Velvet Brown Watts, you'll see her around. Both Lives for Sickle Cell. They are the primary hosts, supported by the Sickle Cell Champions Association and No Pain in the Playroom. And all of this is powered by the Sickle Cell Community Consortium. The consortium is a network of sickle cell families, patients, caregivers, nonprofits. We have come together to identify what are the priorities in our community. That's how mental health, among other things, was identified. And we have come together to then say, we figured out what are the problems we want to address. Now we, as an empowered people, will address them. The consortium holds an annual leadership summit. During that summit, the patients and caregivers place all types of topics on the docket. We then discuss them and prioritize what are the top 3 that we are going to address. Last year, mental health was placed on that docket, and so we began that journey during the last symposium in LA with presentations on depression and anxiety and sickle cell. It is far more common than you think, and a panel. We've continued that journey this year. Among other things that have been prioritized are social media and the need for our CBOs and patients and caregivers to understand how powerful and impactful that can be. We're very grateful for Pfizer Pharmaceutical for sponsoring that as well. We have decided that we wish to see more literature and education on sickle cell disease. And so we're grateful to Bluebird Bio for sponsoring our first patient-powered literature project. We have many examples of the booklet that you're welcome to pick up in the expo hall at the consortium booth. Our booth might not be quite set up yet, but it will be shortly. And so the community has decided these are things we care about, these are the things we wish to change, and we decided that we wanted a place where we can come together and educate each other, educate ourselves, and be educated by experts in the community. Strength. This community, you will find some of the strongest people you have ever met. People who endure intense pain, who have to watch their children endure intense pain, their family and loved ones, yet get up the next morning determined to keep going. I tell people all the time, and they often say, I hear it a lot, and I try to correct it as often as I can. People say, Dr. Bailey, they tell me they're very impressed, or they tell their children about me because you never gave up. And I like to correct that as often as I can. I gave up. During the doctorate degree, that was the hardest time of my life. I have degrees in biochemistry, molecular biology, molecular hematology, and regenerative medicine. I am a nerd. But in the midst of all that, it was the hardest time of my life, and I gave up. I gave up every night. I just got over it every morning.
That's right.
And that is the trait of a warrior. It's okay to not change the world right now. It's okay to not have to. I had a warrior mother tell me, why do you all live like you're running out of time, like you have to do everything right this moment? It is okay not to change the world today, because we will change it tomorrow. I gave up every night. I got over it every morning. Endurance. I tell people the doctorate degree is not a test of intelligence, it's a test of endurance. And life is a test of endurance. That we can endure and not faint. That we can push forward. Because we as warriors, we are the head, we are not the tail. We will push forward. We have strength and we will endure. Stamina. This is the anatomy of a warrior. This is what we are made of. We continue. When things come against us, we continue. This is who we are. You will realize there is a thread streamed throughout every presentation, throughout everything you hear, and that is victory. We have had victory in Congress, and we will be joined by Cyrus Sultan, who's going to talk about our latest victory. We've had victory in the FDA, and Dari is now on the market, the first drug for sickle cell disease in 20 years. Come on, somebody, that's powerful. We are being joined by Dr. Charles Stark of Emmaus to tell us more about that journey. He's coming tomorrow, Friday. We'll have the Pharma Lightning Rounds where Pfizer, Bluebird Bio, and Emmaus will talk about different things that are coming soon or on the market now. And then Emmaus will join us again, Dr. Stark, to tell us about that journey, pushing that through the FDA. This is the anatomy of a warrior. This is who we are. And so, I should be drinking water. I wish to speak that over this community. That this weekend, this convention, this will be a time of endurance. This will be a time of strength. This will be a time of empowerment. That this community will be encouraged. I speak over everyone in this room strength. I speak over everyone in this room endurance. I speak over everyone in this room courage. That we will come together and we will come out stronger. I encourage everyone to be authentically yourself. If you're going through something, your brothers and sisters are here for you. If you want to discuss something on your heart, talk about it. This is a low-key meeting. Throw on your t-shirt, grab your jeans, and be yourself. Tonight we will have our Warriors After Dark. That is a time to talk about topics that we might not discuss in the general crowd. They are divided by male and female. I invite you back tonight because that's usually when those conversations about the post-coital crisis and relationships and these type of things come up. We'll talk about things that men want to talk about with each other and women want to talk about with each other. We have a men's track this year. We have a track, the Sickle Man, the Man's Action Network, in collaboration with the Sickle Cell Champions Association, have put together topics for men. The warrior husband, leading the home, priapism. We're going to talk about those things that affect men. I encourage you all to be authentically yourself. This is that time to find out, why do we all do the sickle rock? All of us do it. When we're in pain, you just look around while you're here. You're going to notice some of the population, they're going to be doing this. The sickle rock. Somebody needs to make a music video. We call it Sickle Rock. I'm looking for some of our artists in the community to come out with that. So.
I know.
This is the time to talk about that. When we're all together, that's what we usually say. Okay, does anybody else? And then everybody's like, oh my gosh, me too. This is the time to talk about that. This is family. We are a family. This is a low-key meeting. meeting, we will be joined by physicians, experts in the community to talk about the science of sickle cell, to talk about pain management. Dr. Ekman, Julie Cantor, and Ife Asankawo, and all these different people are coming to answer our questions about hydroxyurea, about the new drug. We are also going to be here to talk with each other. If you will notice, about 50%, if not more, of the presenters are warriors. Be authentically yourself and get your questions answered. I speak over this community that we will walk in comfort with each other. I speak over this community that we will stand strong, that we will be victorious, that we will continue to be victorious. I wish to remind this community that we are the head, we are not the tail. We are above and not beneath. I want to remind and speak over this community that we will always remember that we are not the sole authors of our successes, nor can we ever be the victims of defeat. That we are strong, we are self-reliant, we are overcomers. When a warrior is lost, we will grieve that loss. We will lean upon each other, and then we will vow to fight on in their name. We are sickle cell warriors. We are they that overcame. During the course of the meeting, we have an app. I encourage everyone to download the app. At the agenda at a glance, we've got a lot planned. Take your time. When you need to rest, there is a quiet room. If you don't have a room in the hotel, there's some snacks in there. Go in there, relax, get a blanket, get warm, stay very, very hydrated. These coolers are going to stay full of water and vitamin water. Again, being very honest with you all, very transparent. I'm told I share a little too much, but I really want to be transparent with this community. And I got out of the hospital about 3 days ago. I was in for 3 solid weeks prior to that, and on and off for the last about 3 months prior to that. Because of that, our meeting, we didn't get a chance to fundraise the way that we usually do, so you won't see as many snacks around as you have in the past year. But go in to the quiet room and grab a snack. You will see plenty of water and vitamin water. Stay hydrated. Brace yourselves. Pace yourselves. And if you need to rest, everyone understands. Someone said last year, what she enjoys about this meeting is that everyone understands. And if you need to go lay down, we get it. We are excited to be joined by the NIH. They are hosting focus groups on CRISPR. This particular focus group is only for 6 to 8 people, 2 sets of caregivers and 2 sets of patients. Sign up now because we can only take that limited number. You all receive emails about it. Every participant will receive a $75 gift card to Target. And this is your opportunity to learn more about CRISPR technology, so I encourage you to sign up. We are joined by the American Society of Hematology, who will be hosting a wonderful focus group during lunch. There's flyers out on the table. I encourage you to grab those and come on out to lunch. We have some amazing panelists and amazing plenary presentations, as well as lunch presentations each day. Lunch will be in ballroom CDE. Everything that was previously, after today, everything that was previously in Habersham, and we will update the app, will also be in ballroom CDE. So your NIH focus groups say Habersham right now, but when you go to those, you can find it in ballroom CDE. In your app, you can actually send messages to each other. We may send out polls. You can ask questions to the presenter, and you can adjust your schedule. So I encourage you to really look at all the functionality that app has to offer. We have our tracks for children. We have sessions for men. We have sessions for young adults. Young adults, you will have a mixer at 11 in, not Brookhaven, not Tuxedo, Chastain.
Habersham.
Habersham. Thank you. In Habersham, young adults, we have sessions that are for you, the college roundtable, all of these different things. We encourage you to just be yourself, come out, ask questions, teach somebody, and learn from someone. And we are very, very grateful to our sponsors. This was created before we had the final list. We're very grateful to Bluebird Bio, to Pfizer, to BioVeritiv and Prolong, Be the Match, St. Jude, Global Blood Therapeutics, and of course our supporters at Emory, ASH, and the NIH. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them at any time. I'm looking forward to working with you all, looking forward to learning from each of you. Thank you for joining us.
You can get another one, and it can start over and over after each 12 months. And it also applies for a parent. So if you have a child with sickle cell disease and you have to take off work, you can get FMLA, so you won't be penalized if you have to take your child to the hospital or to the doctor because of their illness. And so this is just a list that the presentation will be available online. This is just a list of some resources you can go to online that have step-by-step guides of what you need to do, the steps you need to take. I mean, they're great. I would highly recommend going and just taking a look at how to document. They tell you step-by-step how to apply. It's a great resource. And this is just another resource. It's not none of these sites are specific to people with sickle cell disease, but they will have certain diseases in there if you want to click on them. And you can learn a lot of things from people with other diseases, what they've asked for, what they've done, how they submitted claims, and get knowledge from them. And there are a lot of companies who publicly state that they want people with disabilities. Look for them. I mean, it's be proactive. If you have companies that say, hey, we want to hire people with disabilities. We want to encourage people with disabilities to go into the workforce. Starbucks is one of them. They celebrated the 25th anniversary of the ADA, and they're one of the top companies in the country to work for. I mean, people, they rate them extremely high in working for Starbucks. AT&T is another company that they go out of their way to hire people with disabilities. Northrop Grumman. I mean, you can go online. There are lists of companies that actively want to hire people with sickle cell disease. Ernst & Young. I mean, that's just 4 that I just randomly went online, and you just type in companies that want to hire people with disabilities, and you can read about them. They wouldn't be public with it if they didn't want to accommodate people with disabilities. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions? All right. That's my time. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So nobody knows the groups. It's all done by. That's why we do the process of randomization to put some patients into one group. We can call it Group A, and other patients go into Group B. And nobody knows what drug is assigned to each group except the principal investigator. And then unmasking of this is actually done when the trial is terminated. If for any reason some adverse effects come up and the trial needs to be terminated, then probably the patient will be told, oh, you are assigned to this group. But during the clinical trial period, until it runs to the end, no patient knows what group they've been assigned to. The staff running the clinical trial will not know what group they've been assigned to. That is just to protect the integrity of the clinical trial and the data.
But you can find out if the
Yes, you can find out at the end of the trial. Okay, next slide.
One quick question.
Sure.
For the placebo effect, those who think they're actually getting the drug, but yet find themselves feeling better, how does that affect the overall trial?
That's a very good question. A lot of patients who enroll into trials will think or will probably have some effect that they probably think it's the trial material or the drug that's been investigated that is causing maybe a favorable effect or an adverse effect. Now, as I said, it's only the principal investigator who will actually know what groups they've been assigned to, and if it is indeed an adverse effect that causes, significant harm to the patient, the trial investigator can then decide to either terminate or remove the patient from the clinical trial. And then the patient can be told about what drug that they're receiving. But otherwise, even if you do have a good response towards the drug, if I'm the principal investigator, I'm in no position to tell you, you know what, this is caused by the drug. If you do think it's caused by the drug, that's great. But we're in no position to actually let you know that these are the effects caused by the drug or these are the effects caused by the placebo. We just leave it at that. If you're feeling great, that's awesome, that's good. But then, you could guess and kind of think, oh, this is a clinical trial material, or maybe you're just having a good day, who knows? But they'll just leave it, the trial investigators will leave it at that and probably report to them and say, today I felt less fatigue or I felt better. That's great, they'll record it and we'll leave it at that until the end of the trial. So, why should we participate in clinical trials? I want to know why. Has anyone here participated in a clinical trial by show of hands? Oh wow, interesting. Why would you participate? What was your reason to participate in a clinical trial? Honest.
I wanted to help,
You wanted to help.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
help.
Yeah, and this is very important because a lot of patients have come up to me and said, if it's not helping me, why should I enroll in it? And as I said, the drug development process can take up to 16 years. If you do not think it's going to be beneficial to you, trust and believe it is going to be beneficial to somebody else. It will help a future generation. Let's take, for example, the penicillin prophylaxis trial. If those children, or if the parents to those children hadn't consented for them to be in the clinical trial, we still have a lot of patients today dying from infections or complications related to sickle cell disease. So even if it's not going to help you today, it's going to help a future generation, which is very important. So that's one of the reasons why you should definitely enroll into a clinical trial, is to help people suffering from that medical condition or another medical condition. You can enroll into an observational trial for cancer, even though it doesn't particularly hit home. An observational trial is one where you actually don't receive the clinical trial drug. Okay, it's not interventional, but it'll edify the process, it'll edify the research. And it's very important to do this because then once the research is edified, the trial process might move a little smoother, or the trial might be terminated a little faster. So I'd encourage you, if it's not even for you, think about a future generation, think about another person. Of course, some trials have monetary compensation and travel-related compensation. Some patients might do it for that. Good for you. Go get your money. All right, next slide. So who can participate in a clinical trial? Everybody. Each and every one of you in this room can actually participate in a clinical trial. And as I said before, phase 1 and phase 2 trials actually enroll healthy volunteers. Some trials enroll healthy volunteers to participate. So you can definitely look up trials in your area, talk to your doctor, and participate in a trial. And we have what we call inclusion and exclusion criteria. So about 2 weeks ago, I talked to a patient who wanted to enroll in the Bluebird bioclinical trial. And according to her, her sickle cell was quite severe because she has chronic pain every other day. She wakes up in pain. She uses the opioid pain medication every day. And now her body is going through withdrawal. She can't do without it. She always has pain. Like her quality of life scores are reduced. And so she said, you know what, I'm going to look for the Bluebird trial and enroll into it. So she went and approached the clinical trial nurse at her hospital to find out if she can enroll into this particular trial. And the nurse sat down with her and actually explained the inclusion and exclusion criteria. And unfortunately, she was excluded from the clinical trial. And she came back to me and she's like, this is quite unfair. And I said, why do you feel so? Why do you feel like that? Because she said it's only available to patients who have severe sickle cell disease. So I asked her, what would then be your definition of severe sickle cell? And she explained to me what she was going through. And so I sat her down and I said, there are actually patients who had a stroke this year, cannot wake up. There are patients whose lungs have collapsed. There are patients who have to go for dialysis or blood transfusion at least twice a month. And for them, I think that would be what they consider severe sickle cell disease. Also, to understand that particular treatment is actually invasive, is what I also explained to her, and that's why we're looking for patients who have a much more severe manifestation of the disease, whose quality of life scores are very poor, and they can't seem to go on aside from participating in that trial. And she said, oh, you know what, I understand now, I do understand, I can try and manage. So inclusion and exclusion criteria are not put out to exclude you from a trial, they're actually put out to protect you from a trial. So let's say, God forbid, she did enroll in the trial, and she had downstream complications that were even much worse than the pain that she was waking up with. Then you know what? She'll blame the clinical trial nurse for not telling her that. So these criteria are actually put in place to protect patients. And then another thing that I mentioned is that not all trials give a drug. Everybody thinks, you know what, they're going to give me a new drug that they've never tested, so I'm not going to participate in this clinical trial. Some are actually observational studies. They want to know if, for instance, taking vitamin C helps you with your fatigue. So they'll ask you to just record every day, when you're taking your vitamin C in the morning, how do you feel? If doing exercise actually improves your health. Okay, you did exercise today at what time? How did you feel after doing the exercise? Those are what we call observational studies. And a lot actually do go on in sickle cell, so I'd advise you, if you do not want to take part in an interventional study, if you do not want to receive a new molecule, you can actually enroll and participate in an observational clinical trial. So, would you still be comfortable in enrolling in a clinical trial? Would any of you enroll in a clinical trial today? Yeah?
I would.
Awesome.
Like, I've never participated in a clinical trial, and I've never been presented with an opportunity to do that.
Okay.
If it was something that I was interested in, is there one main place to go and find out what studies are being done and something to help me assess whether or not this is something that I want to do?
Okay.
Like, do you know the side effects beforehand, some of the possibilities,
Okay.
like to make an informed decision?
All right. We're going to talk about that, like the barriers to participation. We're going to touch on it slightly a little later on. But yes, you can go to clinicaltrials.gov. That's the basic. That's like the standard for finding clinical trials in your area. Yes.
Actually, clinicaltrials.gov is a good site to go to, but a better one, which is going to be just sickle cell specific, is scdtrialmap.com. scdtrialmap.com. And what's going to pop up is a map, and the map has all the United States, all the states. If you click on whichever state you're in, and you will see a list of active clinical trials going on, what the trials are, what it is, and then you click on whichever trial you want, and it takes you to the clinical trial page. Because clinicaltrials.gov is kind of hard to navigate if you don't necessarily know how to do it correctly. But scdtrialmap.com is strictly nothing but it has all the SCD trial map, SCD clinical trials going on,
Yeah.
observation.
So what she's talking about is an app that Prolong Pharmaceuticals is coming out with, and it just basically shows you the clinical trial sites enrolling for, particularly for sickle cell disease in the United States of America, in each state. So if you visit scd.trialmap.com,
It's SCD trial map.
trialmap.com, yeah. It will basically give you like a map of the United States of America, and let's say I'm from New York, I'm based in New York, you just click on New York, and it will show you all the trials that are going on, the active trials, and all the trials that are enrolling. And then once you click on that particular trial, it still takes you back to clinicaltrials.gov, but it's much easier to find a clinical trial in sickle cell disease that way. All right? So you can use that. Another resource, such meetings, such conventions, there are various pharmaceutical companies that are here to actually talk about their assets, actually talk about their clinical trials. So be proactive and find out what clinical trial you can enroll in, find out where they're enrolling, what cities they're enrolling in. And another thing is talk to your doctor. Your doctors should, not all of them are quite proactive about clinical trials, but they should know what trials are enrolling in your area. And just talk to them. You can also talk to your local CBO, you can talk to an advocate, and they can help you go online and just find out what clinical trials are actually enrolling in your area. Most importantly, be proactive. Go online and just Google, go to clinicaltrials.gov and look for the trials that are enrolling in your area. If you feel like you want to participate in one, go and talk to your doctor about it, and they can further advise on that.
Okay, so the second part of my question is if I do find that I want to participate in one, not knowing, I understand I won't know whether I'm getting the placebo or the real deal, but is there information to help me decide whether or not, like, these are some possibilities, like, I would like to know something ahead of time.
Okay. Now, the information on clinicaltrials.gov, a lot of patients have talked about it not being too patient-friendly. Maybe the jargon used in there is a bit too complex for them. But then if you do see a particular trial and you think you might want to enroll in it, talk to your doctor. Or look for the site where they're enrolling and actually visit the site and talk to the clinical trial, maybe the principal investigator or the clinical trial staff, maybe a nurse who's enrolling the trial, and they can tell you everything about it. One thing that we're going to talk about is informed consent. So they have this form called the informed consent form, and it'll show you, it'll basically tell you everything about the trial material, about the protocol, the inclusion, the exclusion criteria, side effects, potential benefits of the drug. It'll have everything. And another thing I tell patients, if you're not sure, ask. Yeah? Trial staff is there to help you. Just ask as many questions as possible. Yes, Latanya?
I was just going to make another suggestion. You mentioned the different pharmaceutical companies, but also there's a resource, the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, which is part of NIH, and so they fund research, and so they have information about clinical trials. As you were saying, just educational, just to be able to answer questions about clinical trials, not about specific trials, but just in general, to have a better understanding. But that's NHLEI.NIH.
NHLEI.NIH. Yeah. And I like that because the material there is actually patient-friendly. It's very easy to read, very easy to comprehend. So that's another site that you can visit. Yes?
Well, this is another, I had a question about like the trials. How often, like, do you get a ratio of how many people actually help after you do the trials?
How many people actually participate?
I'm saying, like, how many
The
does
end
it help
result.
after you do the trial? Like, do you get a ratio of how many people after doing the trial that it actually helps? Whatever you do.
Whether or not it was successful
Okay, I don't have a ratio on that, but when a trial is successful, pharma or whoever the principal investigators are will announce the success of the results or whatever results that they got, and let the general population, the general public know that, okay, this trial was successful, and then it goes into me. I'm not sure about the ratios. I know a lot of trials, especially in sickle cell disease, might not go into completion because of the numbers. Not very many patients enrolled for the trial. That's another thing that I'd like to just touch briefly on. In the United States of America, only about 12% of the population actively participate in clinical trials, okay? And out of this, only 4% are minorities. Only 4% of minorities actually enroll to clinical trials. Exactly. Very small percentage. So now, 4%, when I talk about 4%, I mean 4% of, okay, so to start off, we have about 33 billion people. Only 12% of these actually enroll into clinical trials. And out of these, only 4% are minorities. And not all of them enroll into sickle cell clinical trials. There are various trials that are going on. So I'm talking about all trials within America. For sickle cell alone, there are probably thousands of trials that are enrolling, maybe let's say between 1 to 3 years. And so imagine if one trial needs about, let me say 200 to 300 patients, because ours is a rare disease, we can have the patient numbers reduced. And from all of this is only a sickle cell trial, clinical trial, but only 4% of patients are minorities and are enrolled into this trial. You can imagine those enrolled into cancer trials, into different, let's say, MS trials and other trials. So we find that the numbers are diminished, very diminished. So it's been very challenging for pharma to actually enroll patients into clinical trials. And that's why we encourage you, like, if you have issues, for instance, you don't know where to find information on clinical trials, talk to somebody, talk to your advocate, talk to your CEO, let us help so that we can increase the number of patients enrolling into clinical trials, and therefore we have more management options available for us. I want to congratulate Endari, Emmaus Life Sciences on Endari. It's been brilliant news because we haven't had a management option approved by the FDA. People say 20 years. I wasn't going for that because hydroxyurea was not first indicated for sickle cell disease. It's an indication that we borrowed, okay? So that was 20 years ago. This is actually the first agent that we have that has actually been approved by the FDA for the treatment or management of sickle cell disease. And that, for me, that speaks volumes. Because we've known about the pathophysiology of sickle cell for more than 100 years, yet we do not have a treatment option. So that is great. Those are like the little strides that we should be making. And that we can only achieve by actually participating in clinical trials. So let's finish up. Next slide. Next slide. Patient safety. So a lot of people, a lot of patients have reservations on participating in clinical trials because they think they're not going to be safely handled, or the trial material is going to cause them some adverse reactions. Some people think it's a legitimate concern that, oh, maybe I may die during the trial, And I want to let patients know that the number one priority of the trial staff and the principal investigator is patient safety. There are various federal bodies that have been put in place to make sure that the patient is safe through the whole trial process, from the time that you actually consent to be into the trial until the end of the trial. Your safety is the number one priority of the principal investigator. Even though it's enrolling 500 patients, if you complain, it is their duty to sit you down and listen to your complaint and listen to what happened, what adverse reactions actually occurred, and to see if they can actually tackle this problem or handle this problem. So some of the safeguards that have been put forward are, number one, a protocol is actually put in place. Let me see. Orange Skittles. Who can tell me what a protocol is? Yes.
How it's supposed to be administered for the trial.
Say that again?
It's the design of the trial.
Exactly. It's the design or a plan of how a trial should run. So the protocol is actually put there for purpose of patient safety. That's number one thing you should understand. And for the protocol to actually be used during the clinical trial, it has to go through an IRB, an institutional review board. And this board just actually makes sure that the protocol or the plan is done in such a way that the patient's safety is number one, okay? And then we have also the informed consent, which I talked to you about. And for children, they have a process called the assent, just the assent to say, yes, I want to be in the trial, or no, I do not want to be in the trial. And this is very important. You know, some parents want to enroll their kids into a trial without asking the child if they actually want to take part in the trial. And this could lead to a problem later on when the child just says, I don't feel like going to a hospital, I don't feel like taking this drug, or I don't like how the doctor treats me, so I don't want to be in the trial. So it's very important for the child to assent before they actually take part in the clinical trial. Some children are incapable of assenting, and that's where the parents step in and actually decide for the children, okay, my child is probably, your child could be comatose. I will assent on behalf of the child. I want the child to be in the clinical trial process. Aside from the institutional review board, we also have data safety and monitoring boards. These just basically review and evaluate the data from the clinical trial for patient safety, to see that the trial is actually, or the study is actually running well, to see the progress and the efficacy of the trial material. And the data safety and monitoring boards can actually make recommendations for early termination of a trial if they see any issues with patient safety. They make recommendations periodically throughout the trial, from the beginning right through to the end of the trial. So those are actually put in place to protect the patient. And then finally, the sponsor team. As I said, the principal investigator comes up with this plan, this beautiful protocol. They want to enroll in a clinical trial, but they've also injected a lot of finances into that. If I put my money somewhere, I do not want to put out like shoddy work or bad work that might go bad. I want to make sure that it's robust, it's integral, because I have my own money in there, you know, I'm investing into this. So I want to make sure that everything runs smoothly. I want to make sure my patients are well taken care of.
Is the founder and president of Forever Free and ACE Network. It's a coaching empowerment group located in California. Dr. Rogers is a mental health professional with a master's degree in psychology and a PhD in women's studies. Her focus is integrating a clinical therapeutic approach using cognitive behavioral therapy and a spiritual discipline, and to bridge the gap between spiritual and psychological modalities. Within the ministry, her primary focus is to equip, coach, and train leaders to facilitate wholeness and healing. She leads conferences worldwide with apostolic prophetic anointing while carrying a kingdom message to the nations. I met Dr. Gail Rogers not that long ago, and the presentation that she gave on mental health, it opened eyes. And I knew that I needed her to come and be part of our mental health initiative that we have going on. We don't discuss this enough. We do not talk about mental health enough, but it is a big component in our community. We have seen the studies that talk about depression and anxiety, and we know from personal experience about hospital blues, the way you feel when you first get out of the hospital. We know about that connection, and chronic pain is the leading cause of depression in adults. Depression can cause chronic pain. This is a cycle that we have got to discuss, we have to destigmatize, and it needs to be something that we can talk about. So, as you'll notice, there are multiple sessions, but today I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Gail Rogers as she leads us in this talk, and then I invite you all to join us again over the rest of the next couple of days as we get into this deeper. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rogers.
Forgive me if I say amen. I'm used to being on the pulpit in churches. So this won't be a church session, but it will be what I hope is very informative for you all. And before I get started, I want to thank Dr. Bailey for having me here. It was very interesting. We met years ago when she was working on her PhD, and I remember encouraging her then, and when I ran into her not long ago and she talked about this, I got excited about the possibilities of literally showing you how to correlate the psychological impact and the disease, the sickle cell disease. I want to share with you all my book, that it will be for sale if it gets here. And I shipped it last Wednesday, and I shipped the book last Wednesday, and so it will be available next door if in fact it gets here. It's called The Whole Soul, Rescripting Your Life for Personal Transformation. And literally it teaches the reader how to change the way that you think, how to change your thinking pattern. And so for those of you who I don't have sickle cell, and I've known about it, but I've not known people, I've not met people with sickle cell. So this is almost a brand new subject for me, and as I begin to research and I begin to look at the correlation and the psychological impact, I thought I understand chronic illness causes issues. And so what we're going to do, I'm just going to kind of give you a brief overview today, just in the essence of time, and then tomorrow afternoon there's an extensive panel. Clayton Andrews and myself have been working on some stuff, and so there's a panel with some other mental health professionals. We're going to be available to answer your questions. One of the things about mental health is that, this is very interesting, the average person that has a mental illness doesn't always know that they have a mental illness, particularly in the African American culture. There is a stigma that Dr. Bailey talked about early, and we'll talk about that if we have time. But I'm going to give you some cold hard facts, and I'm going to talk about how you don't need to be ashamed if you think that there is something going on. The other thing is that you may think something is going on and not have an understanding about it. Our goal here this weekend between now and tomorrow afternoon is to help give you a better understanding, a more comprehensive understanding, if that's okay. Now, I guarantee you're not going to be able to follow me with the slides, mainly because I had 60 slides and I got 30 minutes. So you're not going to be able to follow me. I'm going to kind of go through and hit on the main topic. Let me tell you what the objectives are for this particular session. It's to facilitate discussion, to raise awareness of the psychological and psychosocial implications of sickle cell. It's to explore the relationship between disease-related stress and mental health among women who have sickle cell, men as well, but particularly among women, to raise the consciousness level of symptoms of specific mental health issues. We're going to explore the stigma, probably more so tomorrow afternoon. We're going to explore reducing strategies of the development of patient-oriented interventions to prevent and treat mental health-related stigma. And then, at some point, probably, maybe not this weekend, but there should be further ongoing discussion of legislative possibilities to avoid future impact. Raising awareness of mental health as it relates to sickle cell. All of us have mental health, just as we have physical health, because we're three-part beings. We're mind, spirit, and body. Mental illness represents our mental capacity, the body represents our physical capacity, and the soul is representative of our entire emotional makeup. So what is mental health awareness? It was started in 1949 by a group called Mental Health America. It was then known as the National Association of Mental Health. To become sensitive and knowledgeable about brain diseases. Most people don't understand that mental illness is a brain disease. Here's what we've done in our community. We have said, oh, that's just Uncle Charlie, he's crazy, don't pay him any attention. And we didn't know that Uncle Charlie was bipolar. We didn't know that because, you know, again, we don't go to mental health professionals. Somewhere along the line, particularly for those of you who kind of grew up in church, you know, somewhere along the line, you just were taught that, you know, Christians don't have mental illness. We don't have disability. And where I come from, they cast out the demons. And so for many, many years, you know, I was trained as, you know, you just cast that demon of depression out. You tell that demon to leave and it's gone. You know, and 20 years later, the person still has depression. Because we've not been willing to educate ourselves about what is going on with me. Why is it that I need to sleep 3 or 4 hours in the day, in the morning? Why is it that I can't pull myself out of bed? Why is it that, and you mentioned it just a moment ago, why is it that when I go to the hospital, that when I go home, that for the next several weeks, I'm just down? And I can't get it together. I don't understand. And I'm not supposed to be down because my pastor said, you need to get yourself together and you need to go and get up out of that bed and go to work. Anybody relate to that?
Yes, ma'am.
So mental health awareness is recognizing it as a real physical disease and then educating people on what it is and talking about preventative measures. So, talking about removing the stigma, improving one's quality of life through recognition, accepting people's issues without assigning stigmas. You know they said he got bipolar. Oh, you know he's schizophrenic, so you know he's way off. Anybody ever heard that before? Okay, not in this group. Okay, I understand. So we hear all of those things. Those are stigmas, you guys. Those are stigmas because we've been made to believe that we're not supposed to have these diseases. And so we need to begin to promote hope in those areas. Let me just give you some risk factors, and then I'm going to kind of skip through a little bit. Unfair treatment in the workplace. I heard a little bit about that earlier. Educational institutions due to race, sex, and socioeconomic status. Those are some of the risk factors that you have. Unfair treatment in the healthcare system. Mental illness is a medical brain disorder. You guys need to get that, a medical brain disorder. And can be a combination of genetic and environmental factors. Just as diabetes is a disease, mental illness affects the brain, occurring as a result of various factors. Genetics, physical illness, drug addiction, emotional, physical, and/or sexual trauma. Particularly, and I'm just going to digress for a moment, particularly in the area of sexual trauma. Way back, oh my God, I can't even remember when it was, but I did much research on sexual trauma. What happens after someone has been raped? What happens after sexual molestation in a child? And those are things that we don't address. We don't look at those things and we kind of keep it quiet. Or what happens after domestic violence? What happens when someone literally have beat you in your head for 10 or 15 or 20 years and you don't understand, why you're having these issues and you blame yourself, of course, because he told you it was your fault. All of those things cause mental illness, and that's what you have to know. When fear, stress, anxiety, these are symptoms that are triggered. Traumatic life experiences, emotional distress, divorce or ending of a relationship. A husband that you've been married to for 36 years says to you one day, I'm leaving, I want a divorce. And you've been care of the family, raising the children, educating the children, and now you've got to try to figure out at 60 how you're going to get a job.
Yeah.
That's traumatic. And so those are the kind of things that are triggered. With sickle cell, with all of the issues that I've just been hearing about, the pain. I was just listening when Dr. Bailey was talking earlier this morning about that she usually starts these functions later because of the difficulty that you may have, the pain, the cold, whatever. I appreciate the room being warm too, and I don't have sickle cell, but I appreciate the room being warm. Facts about mental illness. I'm going to talk a little bit about the National Alliance of Mental Illness because I work very closely with them in California, and they are very involved in mental illness. 20% of youth ages 13 to 18 experience a mental health condition in any given year. 20%. 50% ages 8 to 15 with the mental condition never receive treatment. That's serious, you guys. And it's starting even earlier, even younger. Now we're seeing 4, 5, 6-year-olds. I have people that run group homes and they have little children as a result of abuse in their home. And so all of this is a result of something that's going on in the body, something that's going on in the mind. And how many of you just understand that whatever happens in the mind happens in the body? Because, we're a whole person. And so when you look at our brain and look at everything that's associated with our brain, if something goes wrong in the brain, it's automatically going to affect the body. If something goes wrong in the body, it's automatically going to affect the brain. And so, many people go around thinking, well, I'm not going to tell anybody what I'm feeling because I don't want anybody to say I'm crazy. Let me just say today that if there's some issues that you have been experiencing, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, I'll try to talk about that a little bit, and I need somebody to keep me on point for time. So just if you do this, I'll see that. Okay. And so all of these things that are associated, if you've been thinking, I'm not going to tell anybody because I don't want them to think I'm crazy, you know what? You don't care what they think. What you care about is your overall health. You care about being whole.
Amen.
You care about being whole. You're not trying to please them. You got to make sure that you are a whole person. And so whatever you need to do, when you cut your finger or when your blood pressure shoots up to 200, where are you going? To the hospital, right? Well, some people. Some people, because some other people, especially you guys, you guys are such strong guys. It's like, I don't need to go to the hospital. I can get it down. But when there's a physical issue, you go to the doctor. Well, you need to do that when there's a mental issue. I teach high school students how to recognize whatever it is, psychosis. I teach them how to recognize it because much of it leads right into suicidal thoughts. Anybody in here ever had a suicidal thought? There's no point in living anyway because they say, well, y'all got to really strike this one down. They say that the average age for a sickle cell person is 43 years old. We curse that. We not believe in that. And you got to get that out of your mind. That's what this book is about, teaching you how to change your thoughts and how to begin to think differently about what they're saying about sickle cell. I'm excited about the drug that has just finally been approved by the FDA. And I'm excited about you all coming together as a community. I'm more excited about all these young people here. How many young people here under 30? I'm just excited about you guys coming and learning what you need to do for your future. 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. experience a mental health issue. And we're not going to go into a lot of statistics. I just want you to know that you are not alone. That's really the main thing. is that you are not alone. Stigma is the biggest reason people do not accept help, do not seek help. I'm going to skip through some of this and you'll know where I am, I think, once I get to a point. Let me give you some statistics from Newsweek, Tech and Science. I think this was done in 2014. Every year, about 42.5 million American adults, or 18.2% of the total adult population, suffer from a mental illness. Enduring conditions such as depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, many other things. And so post-traumatic stress disorder is a major one. Sickle cell disease and the breakdown in your body is traumatic. It is traumatic, and so you need to be able, you're always on edge wondering when the next situation is going to take place. You know what, when I was here in Atlanta back in April, I believe, I was robbed at the gas station because I didn't have my door locked, and I typically have my door locked. So I went back to California. Now that was April, this is June. When I drive up into the service station, if I see someone looking crazy, I don't get gas, I'm going somewhere else. Because that was traumatic for me. Now I'm not suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, but if you guys understand what I'm saying, and so it's little things that begin to attack us. When our body is attacked, our mind is going to be attacked, and we have to learn how to deal with those issues. An estimated 26% of homeless adults staying in shelters live with serious mental illness. Approximately 20% of state prisoners and 21% of local jail prisoners have a recent history of a mental illness. The reason why I'm sharing this with you, and especially for you youngsters, 70% of youth in juvenile justice systems have at least one mental illness. That means that what we have looked at as a norm, or we just kind of automatically accept things as they are. You guys, listen, if we could begin to hit this thing head on before it ever gets into full bloom, we could help one another. We could help ourselves. That's why I love what it is that you guys are doing here as a community. And so let me go and let me just tell you what stigmatization is. It's the process of identifying an attribute of a person or group and associating the attribute with a stereotype that negatively labels or brands another in a way that is perceived as disgraceful by society. You know, society is mean, you guys. Society is just absolutely mean. I mean, and if we pattern our lives based on what it is and what they believe, if that's how we pattern our lives, guess what? We're always going to be wondering what's wrong with us. Always. 7 types of stigma. And I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Public stigma. When the public endorses negative stereotypes and prejudice, resulting in discrimination against people with mental conditions. Self-stigma. When a person with mental illness or substance use disorder internalizes public stigma. Perceived stigma. The belief that others have negative beliefs about people with mental illness. I heard someone talking about, disclosing your illness in the workplace, whether or not it's mandatory that you disclose your illness. And many times, the reason why a person would not disclose that information is for fear that this person, that this boss, this manager, or whomever would not want me to be there. Would not hire me. Label avoidance. When a person chooses not to seek mental health treatment to avoid being assigned a stigmatizing label. Label avoidance is one of the most harmful forms of stigma. Stigma by association. This occurs when the effects of stigma are extended to someone linked to a person with mental health. Oh, someone would say, well, her son or her daughter or her niece or her grandchild or whatever, well, they're mentally ill. You guys, we got to come away from believing that mental illness is a bad thing, because, we know that all sickness is not good. But when you get the diagnosis, if a person calls you and they say to you, I've just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, or I've just been diagnosed with cancer, we don't say, you better stay away from that person because you know they're kind of crazy because they had cancer. They're not. And so if you were to say to someone, well, I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, you can't shun that person. You need to try to figure out, well, what do I need to do and how can I help that person? Structural stigma is institutional policies. Health practitioner stigma. Anytime a health professional allows stereotypes and prejudices about mental illness to negatively affect a patient's care. I work with a group of people in NAMI. Again, it's the National Alliance of Mental Illness. All of you guys, they're here in Atlanta, and so you really should look them up just for resources. But when I work with a group, and they have the people who have mental illnesses train and teach, because, I mean, who knows better than them? Who knows better about sickle cell anemia than you? Who knows better? And so we go into the hospital and train the clinicians that just because I say that, you know, how do you feel today? Well, I'm just not feeling like living. I'm just feeling like my life is over and that, you know, I might as well just die. And the clinician would say, oh, we need to strap that person down. We need to shoot him up with drugs because that person is suicidal and we need to put him on suicide watch. One young lady just said to me the other day, she was feeling like that she needed somebody to talk to her about why I should be living, why should I want to live, as opposed to let's shoot them full of drugs and let's just, you know, make them go to sleep. And maybe when they wake up, they will no longer feel like they're suicidal. How do we overcome it? Now, this was a session that was supposed to be where I was going to get audience participation. We're not doing that. We'll do that tomorrow. Mental health issues related to sickle cell, personality disorder. And I'm going to describe some of this, and then I think I'm going to be done. Personality disorder, mood disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, disruptive behavior, psychotic disorder, bipolar disorder. Bet you guys didn't know that all of that can be related to sickle cell. Let me describe a personality change due to another medical condition. And this is the definition in the diagnostic manual, psychological manual. Persistent personality disturbance that represents a change from the individual's previous characteristic personality pattern. There is evidence from the history, physical exam, or laboratory findings that the disturbance is the direct pathophysiological consequence of another medical condition. The disturbance causes clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas. Anybody ever had friends or a relative or whatever, and you know, that person was just really, you know, animated, just happy all the time, and everything was just going well for them, and all of a sudden, the next time you see them, they're not talking, they can't talk. I just experienced that with someone just recently. I watched a person go from one of the happiest, upbeat people that I know that now I can't even talk to because now they suffer from a major depression and it's caused all kind of other stuff. PSTD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, recurrent, involuntary, and intrusive distressing memories of the traumatic events. Recurrent distressing dreams in which the content and or effect of the dream are related to the traumatic event. Dissociative reactions, flashbacks, in which the individual feels or acts as if the traumatic events were recurring. You guys, that's just real. Intense or prolonged psychological distress at exposure to internal or external cues that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the traumatic event. Let me give you just a real quick example. A young lady, let's say, gets raped at 9 or 10, or 6 or 7, or 15. And the perpetrator has a specific cologne on. 15 years later, she walks in a room and she smells that cologne. That precipitates a post-traumatic stress recurrence, a flashback it's a trigger. And all of a sudden, she goes into a deep depression. She never even thought about it. But now she's depressed, don't understand why she's depressed, but all of a sudden she just had a trigger that literally took her back to the event itself. Marked physiological reactions to internal or external cues that symbolize or resemble, I think I just read that. Persistent avoidance of stimuli associated with the traumatic events, beginning with the event itself. That's just giving you an overview. Bipolar disorder, it's a condition that causes an irregular pattern of changes in mood, energy, and thinking. People with bipolar disorder have high and low moods. One day they're way up, and the next day